We have Joseph Tsar joining us later. He's a rhetoric expert who will help us communicate clearly and mesmerize people. You can check the timestamps to get into it. But first, nuggets we prepared for this week. Bad news. Apparently, dark mode is bad for you.
What?
Apparently, dark mode might actually be less productive and could make eye strain worse. Do you use dark mode?
I'm on dark mode right now, reading the dark mode is bad for you segment in our notes.
Yes.
And you know what? I'm straining my eyes really badly.
Yeah. So I've always used dark mode on everything, and I think that's the common belief, right? Like dark mode is better. It helps with eye strain. But there's nuances to it. Number one, it only really helps with eye strain if it's dark, because it's more about how much difference is there between brightness in the environment versus your screen, right? It's about relative. And it can actually make eye strain worse. So because when you have a dark screen, your pupils dilate more to see more, and then the white text actually blurs out a little bit, and it's harder to recognize shape for your eyes because they need to work harder. And one of the articles said there are actually very few contexts in the natural world where bright things show up against a dark backdrop, and this shaped how our eyes evolved. So meaning,
Interesting.
Biohacking, evolutionary bro scientists, we always base everything off of how we evolved. And we never evolved to have bright things show up on a dark background. And there's also a study that found that it leads to slower reading speed and you find fewer spelling mistakes.
So it makes work easier, is what you're saying. I correct fewer spelling mistakes. I can take naps while I'm working.
Exactly. You can all blame it on dark mode as well. It's like, no, it's not that I have a lack of attention to detail. I'm just in dark mode. So I think in the end, the only upside is for dark mode is to use it at night to adjust to the environment. And then it does reduce eye strain if you have like a blasting bright screen, but who does that anyways? And then it does help reduce blue light, but you actually want blue light during the day, right? It's like cortisol. Cortisol is not bad. You actually want it in the mornings. You want it to rise up and spike during the day. So that you can be alert. And so I think the take on that is just, pick whichever one you prefer. If you really hate light mode, so be it. But what I did is I switched back to auto. So during the day, it's light mode. And then in the evening, it switches to dark mode. That's how it should be.
That's cool.
We learned something today.
Thank you.
Secondly, one thing I've been thinking about and I've been implementing, I found a way to get free mentorship from top performers that are way ahead in my field. And you can really do this in any thing you're pursuing, right? So long story short, with this podcast, we build a mastermind, you could call it think tank, whatever, with top podcasters. So currently in the rotation, we have Chris Williamson, Sean Purry from My First Million, Charlie from Charisma on Command. They have a 6 million plus subscriber channel. Dr. Mike Israel also wants to be in. And I'm the youngest and least successful person in there, and we're the ones who put it together. And now I'll literally get free mentorship from these guys. 29.
I think that means I'm the youngest and least successful person in there.
Oh, are you 28?
I beat you. I'm 28.
You're the youngest then.
And the least success. I've dethroned you. Admit defeat.
Okay. I'm the second youngest, second least successful. Long story short, we put together this group. These guys are way ahead of us. They make way more money than us. They're more handsome than us, all of us. But the reason why we're able to get them into a room is because they all want to meet each other, but nobody wants to figure out the logistics. And we did. And so you can really do this anywhere. And I've done this anywhere I've pursued a new endeavor, whether it's career or even fitness, or you want to play an instrument, learn a hobby, whatever. You can always get people way ahead of you, or even just like 3 steps ahead of you. They're a little bit ahead of you, and get them into a room together, or in our case, just a virtual call, because they all want to meet each other. But again, none of them wants to actually figure out the logistics of, what about you? Do you want to join? And they're in, right? And so I've done this with my e-commerce business. When I started an e-commerce business, I knew nothing and put together a group when I started the YouTube channel, and now with podcasting as well. And I mean, right now we only had 2 calls so far. We're thinking about doing one once a month. Turnout has been decent. The first call was great. There were a bunch of people on there. Second call, a bunch of them were really busy. Chris Williamson and Dr. Mike both haven't been on yet, but both of them said, please keep the invites coming. I want to make it. And yeah, it's just whatever guests we have on the show. if they're a content creator, a podcaster, whatever, we just bring them on. And I think if you don't do something like that, you're just missing out on yeah, like I guess learning the shortcuts from people that are way ahead of you. Because I think everyone has access to it. You just need to know who to reach out to. And even that, you can find people. Like, let's say, for example, you start an e-commerce business and you are starting a supplement brand. Let's just go with the shadiest, most immoral business to start, one of the shadiest industries. Reach out to people that, have a 7-figure supplement business, or even 8. You could even go as high as an 8-figure supplement business, as long as you say, hey, this CEO who, they're making 50 million a year, he's hopping on a call, and also this one, do you want to join as well? It's free. And it's kind of like a chicken or the egg thing, right? That's kind of what we did, where we're like, hey, like all these people are joining, you want to be part of it? And then once you have the first yes, you then have confirmation. And then, because if no one shows up and you're just like, oh, I'm trying to get these people together.
It becomes not lying the further along you get.
Exactly. And lies,
by the time they show up, it's not lies anymore.
Exactly. You start with 100% lies and you slowly decrease the lies. You slowly back it up. It's fake it till you make it. Have you ever been part of any masterminds or groups like that?
No one invites me to things like that. Yours, where I'm the number one least successful and youngest.
Yeah, perfect. Well, here's the thing, right? That's, I think, a common experience from people who are also, they have a friend group in their city and they're like, oh, no one really invites me to anything, and I'm always the one who's inviting everyone. That is my consistent experience as well. I do get invited to stuff. I mean, I'm extremely popular and famous and everything, but most of the time, I'm the one who's putting something together. And I think a lot of people get upset where they're just like, yeah, nobody invites me to stuff, but nobody in general gets invited to stuff, and everyone wants to be invited. So if you're the one who just puts something together, like, people show up and they want to be there. And that's literally been the biggest networking hack for me, is just be the organizer.
One bonus tip from running a few of these, not even like super long-standing masterminds, whether it's just events or DM groups or whatever, don't position it like an offer, at least not at first. This isn't like a money-making operation. Like, the way we're running ours is literally, it's homies in a group chat, and then once a month we're doing a call when it works for everyone. And it's not like some branded thing. There's no funnel. It's not on, a service or anything. It's just a Zoom call or Google Meet. We're hanging out because the people you want to show up, they're getting sold to all day, every day. And part of this is like, it's supposed to be a fun thing where they can be friends, and they don't want to feel like they have to pay to have friends, because no one likes feeling like that.
Yeah. My best friends today are the ones who I invited to my first YouTube mastermind think tank, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I think the word mastermind has been so overused by people who are selling new stuff that, that can even feel like, oh, this is like an offer. Like, maybe it's just like I don't know, what would you call it? I don't know. Come up with a different name for it, right? That doesn't sound scammy, or just like
a BFF club.
BFF club. Done. There it is. Yeah, we all had a few thousand subscribers, but I saw their channels on YouTube and I was like, that's good stuff. They're going to make it. Invited them to a group. Months later, we all blew up and got to 100,000 subscribers, and now we're best friends. And they have millions of subscribers, and I don't. I got left behind. I'm stuck at 670,000. Yeah. Anyways, cool app that you shared with me. You shared with me the CD app.
Yes.
I'm going to one-up you.
Oh, really?
I found a better one with even more reviews. Who knows? Maybe yours is better, but Seed Oil Scout. Same thing. It had more reviews on Apple Store, but basically it allows you to check the restaurants in your area to make sure that they're seed oil free, and which ones. I know you can also check products. So in Austin, for example, there's good options. So it ranks them in different severity, right? So for example, there is completely seed oil free. Then there's like, some of them have seed oils, some of the menu items, and then there is you're gonna get oil brain guaranteed if you put any of this in your mouth. Yeah, and same thing for products. Like, even the weirdest products have seed oils. Did you know that?
Everything has all kinds of stuff in it now.
In the US, rough estimates suggest that seed oils like soybean, corn, canola, sunflower contribute around 8 to 10% of total daily caloric intake.
Whoa.
Isn't that crazy? I thought it would be just a small percentage because it's just the oil we cook stuff in, but it's like 8 to 10%. So if you're eating 2,000 calories a day, 200 of those, I mean, it makes sense. It's not that surprising, but also last episode we talked about how Todd Herman wears the Darth Vader helmet when he writes. You're reading the book, right? Is that confirmed?
I know he wears the glasses. He hasn't said anything yet about a Darth Vader helmet, but I'm only on chapter 4.
I think, if I remember correctly, that's what he does, or somebody does it. We got this comment from ArchLM01, 740. It's called Enclothed Cognition. Basically, we put on a costume and begin acting like the character. The more it's reinforced, the better it works. People wearing a business suit, for example, are treated like professionals, etc. Enclothed Cognition is basically the idea that once you put on certain clothing, it affects the way that you think and you act and you behave. It's almost like accessing a separate new piece of identity. And I asked the Consensus app, the Bro Science Check app, the original study introducing enclothed cognition showed that wearing a lab coat improved attention when participants believed it was a doctor's coat versus a painter's coat, or merely seeing it. This effect was tied to both the symbolic meaning and the physical experience of the clothing. So
That's amazing.
they put on a coat, and instead of, like, if they thought this was a painter's coat versus they thought it was a doctor's coat, the doctor's coat people had more attention to detail. Also, it gave me another funny one. Wearing a police uniform increased action tendencies and resulted in more shooting errors in a simulation task. What is that?
Dressing like a cop makes me want to go punch people.
Yeah, it makes me want to pull out my gun at inappropriate moments and shoot it. What? So who knows? Maybe this could be a suggestion for the police department. Just like, hey, have you tried not wearing uniforms? Have you tried putting on a painter's coat?
Have you guys tried not identifying yourselves as police and then shooting people? It works way better. It's
Yeah,
great.
yeah. You actually, you're way more accurate. Oh God.
This does remind me though of like there's that tip of if you really don't want to go to the gym, just you don't have to go, but just put on your shorts and your running shoes or your lifting shoes, and then you'll all of a sudden you'll want to go.
Yeah, you're already starting the habit. So this is one of the things I thought about too. What are some how can we tap into this in our lives? Enclothed cognition. So, for example, like you said with the gym, can I just put on clothes beforehand, even if I don't feel like it? Then a follow-up on that was, you know how athleisure had a massive boom, the athleisure brand, right? Where you're like, okay, I can wear this all day, but it's also, I could just start running and nobody would start looking at me weirdly, right? That whole boom came from, and Lululemon is one of the companies that massively capitalized on this. It came from I guess from specifically women who had busy lives and also wanted to be healthy. And so they would go to their job and then they want to go to yoga and then they want to go back to work and they don't want to have to change clothes. So they can just do it all in, it's one outfit and it's a versatile outfit. And here's an interesting thing. Do you think that wearing athleisure has a measurable effect on people being fitter? Just wearing it. Because how do you feel, how do you behave as someone who wears athleisure? I started doing that too. Like I started wearing a lot of Gymshark because it's literally perfect. It's comfortable shorts that I can wear throughout the day that I can also work if I wanted to work out. And I don't know, I could see how just wearing athleisure makes you want to work out more. It makes you behave and feel and act and think like a fit person.
That sounds unhygienic as hell though. Like you're going to work and then you're going to your hot yoga class and getting it all sweaty, then you're going back to work.
Yeah. I don't think that's actually how people used it, but it was more like, hey, I'm going to wear this and if I want to work out, I can.
Right.
But it's almost like just having that mental flexibility, but not actually doing it. I mean, the people that did actually do it, they probably lost their job and then they were only working out. They weren't
got
switching
HR
from work.
citations for being stinky.
Yes. They
That's
weren't
like-
switching from yoga to work. They were just at yoga then because they lost their work.
I wonder if you can if that even gets down to the level of individual like outfits. Like Steve Jobs wore the same thing every day. Alex Hormozy wears the same thing every day.
Yeah, Alex Hormozy wearing a wife beater every day. Do you think there's a higher chance that, sometimes he just looks at his wife and he just
Whoa.
wants to start swinging? No, I'm kidding. Of course I'm joking. But it does
Layla
affect
did
how
post a reel about her shoulder hurting today, so I don't know, but
Okay, this is all jokes, no accusations. These are extremely wholesome people and we love them. No, but seriously, wearing a turtleneck probably makes you want to come up with some innovative stuff. Turtleneck and round glasses, and you're just like, people don't know what they actually want, but we do.
I wonder how much of it is also because obviously, like when the person was told this is a doctor coat versus a painter coat, the behavior was different. So I wonder if part of that is what you think other people expect of you based
Yeah.
on the role that kind of implies, right?
Yeah, it's like a reinforcing feedback loop, right? Because
Right.
I don't know, did cops the cops uniform thing, the lower accuracy when you wear a cop uniform, shooting errors, like that. Who knows? Maybe that came, that only developed in the recent years, but
I wonder if that's a
100%.
big deal in like the police world if they've all been like complaining about their uniforms. They're like they're tight around the shoulders. It's really I can't aim.
I can't lift my arm properly. They're just always shooting from the hips. But jokes aside, I've been thinking about getting something like this here, the Versa Grip. Have you heard of this? It's
No.
this thing that you use it, for example, when you're doing lat pull downs, so that the bottleneck of the lift is not your forearms anymore. You know how some exercises, you do like I don't know, like dumbbell
Like a farmer
curls
carry?
or stuff like that, and yeah, farmer's carry probably as well. And you fail the exercise because your forearms give out, and so this reduces that massively, and then you can isolate the muscle. And I think just in general, wearing like advanced lifter gear, I could totally see how that makes you want to go harder in your workouts, and you're just like, yeah, that's me. I'm wearing a lifting belt. But yeah, I think also when doing deep work, for example, when I want to focus on doing something like writing, like I don't know if I would wear a Darth Vader helmet, especially at a co-working space in public. Like I still want to have access to the space and not get put on the blacklist. On the dark side list. But I think even just like wearing over-ear headphones and a hoodie, putting the hood up, like that just gets me into focus mode, I feel like. Like immediately I feel like, okay, don't talk to me. I'm huddled up. I'm ready to focus.
That definitely communicates don't approach me. For
Yeah.
sure. No one will interrupt you.
Yeah, what do you think in the comments below? What do you think is going to be a level up for you in that?
And try some experiments with it. Like try wearing different outfits and doing different types of activities you wouldn't normally, like, wear your gym clothes on a date, go to work naked, try it out, see what happens.
Yeah, let us know. Next up, we have Joseph Tsar joining us. He has a channel with over 300,000 subscribers on how to articulate yourself with such incredible precision that you deeply mesmerize and influence people, like, for example, Martin Luther King or Steve Jobs do. How would you describe what you do, and why does it matter?
I help people articulate themselves. People are most at ease and they're comfortable when they're seen and they feel like they can make themselves be seen with what they say. And that comes down to understanding what are the mental communication challenges, what are the verbal communication challenges, the vocal communication challenges, and the social communication challenges that a person struggles with. It might be none, it might be 25. So I help people solve those. And my company, Nounce, creates products that help solve each of those categories. And we also create software that helps us diagnose those. And it's fun, man. I love what brings me alive in life is giving people an understanding of themselves and the way that they speak that they can now go do incredible things with. We talked about earlier this idea of missed potential. I think it's one of the greatest fears that people deal with.
People like us. Yeah.
People like us, I think it's also, it's a very natural and normal state to go into a meeting, to go into a conversation, to sit down at a table and want something from it. And when you're not getting a good feeling, it feels like it's slipping away. You don't know what's slipping away, but you feel that something is slipping away. And it might be an outcome that you had in mind from the start. Like walking into a sales meeting knowing that the only positive outcome that's going to make you happy is closing a deal. And when you feel that that's slipping away out of grasp, then that's when the negative emotions take over. So communication is all about getting yourself into a state of mind, of voice, of words, and of your relations with other people where you're not worried about missing that potential. And that's what I love helping people figure out.
I feel like I'm about to miss a lot of potential today because I've been on very little sleep. And you said you can't tell. I feel like it's starting to kick in slowly. So just a little disclaimer, I may sound a little unga bunga with my speech in this one. And if you see any ways that I can level up my communication, feel free to interrupt and point it out. Because, what I'm curious about is what's the 80-20 of what you teach to help people go from not being able to articulate themselves precisely to, what do you call it, a verbal athlete?
We think of speech in 3 different paradigms. Speech as athleticism, speech as art, and speech as a hospital. So let's start with the first one. Speech as athleticism. If you're not good at something, it's because you haven't put in the necessary repetitions to get good at the craft. Do you have a sport you like?
No.
You don't like sports. Sleeping. We both want to sleep. We both could use time on the couch.
Yeah.
Not that you need it. You seem perfectly cognizant and present, which is good. And we're both here present, right? People are present when they're playful and they're attentive and they come alive, which is what we are right now. We're alive.
Mm-hmm.
So let's take sleep as an activity. Let's take sleep as a form of athleticism. You can become very good at sleep. There are people who have devoted their lives to improving the sleep craft.
Yeah.
Sleepcraft.com. Someone buy that domain.
I know. Should I check?
You can check if it's available.
Where do you usually check?
InstantDomainSearch.com will give you a real-time reading of any domain.
It says who is. What does that mean?
Is it red or is it green?
Is it red?
It's not available. But I might get sleepcraft.lol.
.lol?
.lol is a very popular extension, though.
Interesting. .ai is available?
Don't get that unless if it's not a software application, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
You can't AI sleep, bro.
Do you know what when you go to relentless.com, it leads you to Amazon?
I have heard of that. I admire that because what it shows is the spirit of Bezos was there from the start.
Yeah. That's one of his what do you call it? Part of his vocabulary, his verbal, his brand, something brand you said.
Verbal brand. Every person has a verbal brand.
Yeah.
That they
Bold and
crafted.
relentless is one of his. Site, like, where were we? I've totally derailed it.
It's a very natural progression in the conversation.
Oh, you're talking about athleticism, sleeping, sleepcraft. All right, we're back.
If you're not good at something, you have to put in the reps. If you want to be good at sleeping, sleep more.
I sleep every night. Yeah.
Get feedback on your sleeping.
Yes.
Have someone critique
Get a sleep
how
coach.
open your eyes are. Get a sleep coach. Sleepcoach.com.
I'll check that real quick.
It's not going to be available.
Yeah.
Brian Johnson's got that one on lock.
Yeah.
Speech is the same thing. We jokingly said that sleep was a form of athleticism. I like to view speech as a form of athleticism. And if you want to improve at anything, you have to put in the repetition. You have to get feedback on it from someone who knows how to do it well. And then you have to apply the feedback. And so when we talk about developing athleticism as it relates to speech, we're talking about that exact process. This comes from a book called The Expertise Book, The Handbook of Expertise, which is a seminal work that introduced the concept of deliberate practice, which is how athletes would get good at anything. They would do something poorly. They would hire someone to show them what they did. They would practice what the expert told them they did poorly. And they would do that on repeat. And so that's the first category of speech as athleticism, speech as art. I believe that humans are very, very creative creatures by default. The human spirit is a creative one. It's a generative act. Speech is very generative. It's very artistic. Every person, whether they realize it or not, has a verbal brand. And a verbal brand simply is a collection of the words that you use at any time in life that describe who you are. And you've probably picked those up from your parents, from any major sources of influence in your life, online or offline, and you have put yourself in line with all of them. And if you don't like the way that you sound, you can absolutely change that. And a lot of people do. They identify a version of themselves that they want to sound more like, that's in line with their life goals and their trajectory for who they are as a person. They figure out how that person would communicate and what do I need to change now in order to speak, to think, to relate to others, or to choose my words like that person. So that speech is art, which is everything that you describe around you can be bent, it can be twisted, it can be combined in new ways. And people like that because they like the reactions that other people can give them. The same kind of reaction where you might walk into a museum and look at a beautiful piece from Picasso or the Mona Lisa or the statue of David from Michelangelo and just be at awe that someone could do something like that. Now, it's very rare that that happens with words, and I've certainly not had those revolutionary mic drop moments in my life, but I know people who can produce those, and they value speech as a form of art. And then the third category is speech as a hospital. And that's how we view our software side of what we do. We are doctors who help diagnose speech cancers. Bit of a dramatic term, but everyone has those thorns in their tongue that are holding them back. Sometimes they might be mental. They might actually literally be, you have a toothpick stuck in the back of your teeth.
Yeah. I like that.
Can I tell you one of my deepest desires?
Yeah.
Are you ready for it?
I am.
I have never shared this publicly.
Does it involve a closet and moving out of it?
It involves something very, very, very influential, unrelated to a closet. I think one of the greatest achievements in life is to create a word that everyone in society uses. And I know someone, a Twitch streamer, who also believes this. And that's the reason why he started Twitch. It's the reason why he started streaming. Was because all he wanted to do was introduce a word that everyone uses. You know what that word was?
I think I know.
Who?
Kai Cenat?
It was the word riz.
Yeah, charisma.
Charisma.
And he invented even more words than that, right?
5 of them. 5 words that he introduced. And I love that outlook. If you can control the words that people use, what you are doing is shaping the way that people relate to each other. And you can use that for tremendous good. You can also use that for a lot of social harm as well. And this was George Orwell's belief about language, is if you wanted to reduce how much life had to offer a person and the emotion, the joy that you could extract from life, reduce their vocabulary and they won't be able to describe things. People won't know what freedom is if they don't have a word to describe it. People will be stuck in this woozy, undefined state of not knowing how to articulate the world around them. And Kai actually talked about this on a podcast one time. Not this exact concept, but he said that there's that artist within him that he didn't use the term linguist, but that's my sense of what he was hunting for. He wanted to give people a way with words to capture the modern culture or a part of culture that he helped create. And that was this entire trend line of Riz. So that is also a desire that I think I share. is I would love to be able to create a word that people use.
Let's do it. Let's do it right now.
We have to come up with a feeling. What are we trying to label? Something that you feel, no, let's take this seriously. What is something that you've been thinking about recently in life that is important to you, that's an emotion that you feel is poorly represented or maybe underrepresented by a word? Like you said the word great. You felt great was like a cheap substitute for something that could have been more specific. So maybe it's something simple as saying you enjoy when someone says something intelligent. I don't think I said anything intelligent, but let's say that you said something intelligent to me and there's like an exclamation. It's like eureka, but for when your best friend says something intelligent. It's just an idea. You don't have to take that tease.
Yeah, mic drop kind of thing.
Yes.
A kind of standing ovation.
A verbal way of acknowledging a standing ovation. Yes.
That's a dropper. A mic drop. A dropper.
That's a dropper, bro.
Yeah,
It sounds like some Australian slang.
he threw a dropper. A dropper. That could be a thing. Or there's something we can cook something up. Cooking something up is it's one of these things, right? Let them cook.
A lot of what we teach has been shaped by my understanding of what I've been through. And I was at a stage in my life where I physically could not speak.
Really?
I had a stroke when I was younger and I lost the ability to speak entirely.
Oh, fuck.
And anything that I do that people consider better than anyone else is not because I'm better than anyone else. It was because I was at one stage in my life worse than everyone. And so I've done a lot of self-auditing. I've sat down and I've taken inventory of what I haven't liked about the way that I've said things or the way that I've described the world or expressed myself. And I've realized that there were 9 stages that I've seen speakers go through. And so many of our clients, so many of the friends that I've had the chance to work with are far better than myself. All of our coaches are better than me, which I love. One of the final levels of articulacy, we call it the articulate ascent. There are 9 stages that a person goes through in their path to becoming a great communicator. Level 9, we call it the golden tongue. And one of the hallmarks of a golden tongue speaker is their chief value in communication is simplicity. Level 3, by the way, is where most people get hung up, which is where they enter the domain of being a word salad chef. Where to them, good communication is about how well they can flex their intelligence in a conversation. And it's a necessary stage to go through. Most people think that to be articulate is to use fancy words. And you're right, a lot of people come to us because they want to know how to increase their vocabulary so that they can go to a coffee bar and talk about the neurological chemistry, about the nuclear thermodynamics of why the proposition principle was part of the Prohibition era.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. And it doesn't further the chief value of communication, which is to further understanding between two people. We talk here so that I can take what is upstairs in my mind, convert it to sound waves that enter your ears, and then upload to your brain so that you can understand it. It's a very simple pathway, a very simple distribution of information. And it's so that you can understand me and I can understand you. That's why we talk. That's why we communicate. And people forget about that. If I were to use fancy words in the process or intentionally try to make things more complicated than they needed to be, then I wouldn't be valuing what the Greeks call the telos of speech, the end, the goal, which is to achieve understanding between everyone involved.
So what would be the 80-20 if I wanted to get that golden tongue, or at least get 80% there from just listening to this one episode? What are the most common mistakes? What are the key things that if you do those things, you'll get there rapidly?
if there was one high leverage activity I had to give someone to improve their communication, it would be to build a commonplace book. Commonplace book. I have some in my bag that I brought with me. It's where I store language. It's where I write down phrases, ideas, so I can review them, so I can practice using them, so that they surface in what I share, what I output. Most people don't collect any part of the world. So having a place where you can store all of that, and there are systems for practicing it so that it actually retains in your speech. There's systems for that. It would be to start a commonplace book. Start writing down words, ideas that you hear, because you can only explain the world as well as you've explored it. And if you're not collecting it, then it's not going to just naturally surface, unless it was really meaningful to you, which is okay. That's how most people operate.
What would be some of the things that you've collected or that someone might collect in that? Is it a list of 100 words where you're like, hey, for example, I've noticed you use the word nutritious. That seems to be one of the words that's in your...
It is. It's part of my verbal brand.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
a very good observation.
Yeah, yeah.
And I love that. I'd never judge anyone by how they speak. I don't think there's any right way to speak. There isn't.
Yeah.
What speech is, just like art, there's no right art. Art is an expression of emotion or the individual, and that's what speech is. And so if someone wants to choose a certain word or no words, that's okay. So much of communication, man, it's also not about the words either, which is, it's one of the biggest misconceptions we have to uproot from someone's thinking. When it comes to the word nutritious, that was in my commonplace book.
Mm-hmm.
And it was under a section in my commonplace book that I called creative language. So what we encourage people to do is create 10 to 15 categories that capture the different scenarios in life that you want to show up better in how you speak, how you think, how you use your voice, and how you relate to others. The 4 circles, the 4 paradigms of good communication.
What would be some other words that you have in there?
Oh, that's a good one.
And how do you choose them? Like, what's the criteria?
Sometimes a word looks articulate on paper, and then you try it on, and like a shoe, it doesn't fit. And a lot of that has to do with accent. A lot of that has to do with how your mouth has been underdeveloped or overdeveloped. So the speaking apparatus, the tongue, the teeth, the mouth, the jaw, the larynx, all of that give a person a sense of comfort with what they say. I do not like the word bucket. I do not like it. I cannot tell you why I don't like it. I don't like how it sounds when I say it. To me, it sounds very cheap. It sounds very juvenile. That's me. If someone else uses it, I'm cool with that. I wouldn't use the word bucket. I wouldn't go out of my way to use it.
How about moist?
The word moist, man, is a really funny one. You have to be careful how you say moist, because some people...
But why? Why is that word moisture? Why is that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is there are certain connotations that words have in society where it's not so much the word itself, it's the feeling that it gives and the shared feeling that other people have had when that word has entered the conversation. So at one point, the word moist didn't bother you. And then you understood its meaning, or there was a certain shared emotion that you experienced with people when they used the word moist. So if I were to really unpack what that feeling is, it has some innuendo to it.
Mm-hmm.
The word moist.
Yeah.
And so
By the way, we're losing 1% of viewership every time you say the M word. So it's just the retention graph is like bloop, bloop.
My goodness, man. All right, we got to start using words that engage people.
Yeah. The retention graph comes back up. The people join back in the episode again.
You know what's so funny, man? There's this whole group on X that they call it speech maxing. And what they've started to do is speak in a way to retain their friends' attention.
Oh, yeah, hooks. They use hooks.
They will use hooks and they will say, what I'm about to share with you is something that you have never even thought of. In fact, by the end of this speech, Leon, you will be asking me to talk for another hour.
I started doing that unconsciously, but I think I may have already spoken like this before. But when for example, I work with clients on the YouTube stuff, they're like, damn, this is so, like, you speak in hooks. Where I'm like,
retention speak, as they say.
yeah, okay, here's the biggest thing that you got to change about your channel. That is, it's really only a small tweak, but it'll change the trajectory of where this whole thing is going.
Do you think that's wrong to speak that way?
And I naturally do it, not even like, oh, okay, you know, but genuinely, I'm like super excited to share this with them. And I'm just like, okay, here's why what I'm about to share with you is really important. It's not just another thing I'm sharing. This is really is, trust me, if you do this, you know, like I have to tee it up that way so that people, they know the gravity of it. And
what you've identified there is something really important. You speak based on your influences, your inputs. So if your inputs come from a large consumption of YouTube, you have a YouTube diet, it's going to shape the way that you speak. There was this interview with this 9-year-old, and this man walks up to him and he says, tell me something about your family. And this 9-year-old says, what should I say, chat? Should I tell them about my little brother, chat? What should I do, chat?
Oh my God. I thought you were about to say apparently.
I love that kid. I love that kid. Our company's actually doing a study right now that may or may not involve that kid, and we've tried to reach out to him.
Oh, that's...
We've created a tier list of who we call the golden mic recipients. And this is something that's about a year out. We've already handed out 2 of these to people who have shaped the culture with their words. If Dropper becomes as common as the word Riz, you shall be awarded a golden mic with your name inscribed on it. You'll be entered into our Speakers Hall of Fame.
Yes. Awesome. Where were we? We're going in so many directions.
It's
and
amazing.
I want to go in all of them.
And this, by the way, man, this is the beauty of conversation, and why missed potential is one of the worst fears to deal with, is because everything is an adventure. And if we can, I tell myself this so often, and I say this for the sake of myself, which is if we can just sit back and embrace that not everything needs to be collected and connected, it takes so much pressure off. And I remind myself about this so much in conversation, which is a lot of people feel like they have to tie up every loose end. I get that sense.
I feel like I do. In my mind right now, I'm like, there's so many more ways that I so many more boxes I need to tick for the audience to feel like, okay, I've closed all the open loops. Because we have the open loop of right now of what's the 80-20? One of them is the commonplace book. I still want to hear about, okay, what are some other words? You know? So I'm keeping the audience in mind. But you're right. It's I think that's, by the way, the whole like not wanting to lose something. I think that's the number one reason why people take photos and videos of things when they're live, not because they want to share on social media. And usually the common sentiment is, people they're not enjoying the moment because they want to share it on social media. Look at all these peasants that are filming the fireworks instead of just looking at it. I don't think it's people wanting to post on social media. I think it's people wanting to capture this moment so I don't forget it and I can look at it later again. But it's a sense that it's only this one time. I want to capture it. I want to keep it. But you never really look at photos again, and it doesn't look as good on the photo. I mean, yeah, that's just a... What do you think about that? Does that resonate with you?
It does, and it's something that I've thought about and written about. Emotion can't be captured. There's part of the human experience, part of the human soul that can only exist in the moment. And so much of what people attempt to preserve is the full richness of the experience. And all we end up is with a cheap substitute, which might be a picture, it might be a word. One of the practices that we take people through often is what we call the emotional wheel. And there was a professor who created this wheel of emotions. And there are 6 different dominant emotions. There's anger, there's joy, there's love, and there's several others. I know the colors, I don't always know the words. And there are 3 different rims in this wheel. There's the center wheel, the dominant emotions, and then you go further out and those emotions get a little bit granular. So love, for example, might be a mixture between compassion, might be a mixture between gratitude. You go even further, you double click into those emotions and then you get really microscopic.
Moist.
That would be a very interesting one to unpack.
It'd be very granular. Somewhere in the love bucket.
You're pushing all the buttons today, bro. Well, we thought about moist. Like, there's a little bit of uncomfortableness to that. There is, I might even use the word sexual. That's not an emotion, but there are different ways that you can unpack a word to a point where you get to the first principle of that word. And by the way, that's a lot of what people are after in communication. The word articulate, we've realized, produces two effects in a person. One, when someone is articulate, they've done one of two things. They've either sharpened an idea. So if I were to say, be precise, Leon, what's a way that you might be able to be more precise? How could you sharpen the word precise?
Accurate.
Yeah. A lot of people will go through synonyms. Precise, accurate. And it's a fantastic place to start. If you want to be more precise, paint a picture. So if I were to say, let's be razor sharp with what we say. I want us to speak like we are cutting through this foggy state of information in the world. We're gonna cut through it like we're using a katana blade. It comes alive. It paints a picture. Now, there are people who aren't able to visualize. It's called aphantasia. The mind's eye is black. It's dark. We work with a lot of people who deal with this, by the way. So we have to figure out, how do we help someone speak and think visually without that part of their brain being available to use. So sharpening is one. Surprising is the other part of articulacy. So if I were to say, I'd really like some coffee and dog this morning, you'd be like, coffee and dog? Those words don't go together. Yes. So if you can create unique combinations of language, what it does is it kind of wakens someone up in the moment, and they start paying attention more.
I like that. Can I add a little hack that I've figured out recently?
Love to learn.
Speech hack. You can take it, put it into your program, because I think it'll create extraordinary results. We're all about short-term gimmicks on this podcast, things that people can immediately implement. And I think a way to surprise people and to add color and creativity to your communication is to combine opposite adjectives to sound smarter, and just stopping the conversational scroll, if you just to capture attention. So for example, you could say something like two opposites, like violently gentle. Can I hold your baby? Don't worry, I'm violently gentle. It's like really, really gentle. That makes sense, right? Or,
and what do you think a mother feels when she hears that?
I don't know, but she's gonna pay attention, and you have her attention. Or it could be, I don't know, you're waiting in a phone line or whatever, and you say, hey, I can wait. I am
violently gentle.
Yeah, or it could be in this case, because you're waiting, I'm rapidly patient, or intensely relaxing. Have you heard this man's voice? It's intensely relaxing. Or I find this idea magnetically repulsive. Or this person is disgustingly attractive. Have you ever heard someone speak like that? That, I think, that could be a new speech pattern that we introduce into society.
I love it. It's an excellent.
Listen, if you hate it, you can say it's fine.
It's an aggressively mediocre demonstration of what we talked about with articulacy.
Damn. I feel like mixed feelings. Like, one, it seems like you're not liking it, but the fact that you're using it now and it's working on me, I'm like,
what I'm feeling inside, Leon, is I hoped I understood your idea. That was not out of any intent to diminish what you said, because I think it's an excellent practice if used in moderation. What I really like about this, one of the funny things about speaking, part of the articulate ascent is people get to this stage where the challenge of speaking is one of limiting their own intelligence. It's called the burden of compromise. So you get into a conversation. Let's say you can run circles around me with your understanding of how to be a world-class podcast host. I know nothing about it. So you start listing off all of these terms. You talk about the structure of a podcast, the way that you prime your mind beforehand, the way that you help warm up the guest to your personality and your presence.
Mhm.
And I start getting lost. Now, you've done a fantastic job at this, but if it was a person who never knew what media was, it would go over their head. So now you have to dumb it down.
Yes.
You have to compromise.
Yeah.
And that's why studying communication too quickly and getting caught up in the word cloud can actually distance yourself from a person.
Yeah, because in the end, it is about that communication, that communication trail that you lay from your brain to the noises your mouth makes to their ears and then into their brain. Because that's really what it's about, right? And who knows? Maybe the moment, what's it called? Neuralink comes out, your company just goes bankrupt because people don't just speak anymore. I don't know. It's just like boom, like zzz, you have the exact image. I don't know. Maybe or who knows? Maybe it 10x's it because then you go into teaching how to think the right thoughts that then other people immediately receive. But yeah, I could totally see that how people add a bunch of complexity to the language or new techniques that actually achieve the opposite. Is that what it is? Did I get that right?
Yeah, I think there's a lot there to unpack, and I like your understanding of this. There's one of
That was a really, really good way. You just said, no, you didn't. Here, let me explain it. But you said it in a very gentle way.
You thought the subtext was you thought I was just being diplomatic.
Yeah.
Very delicate.
Yes. I thought you were like, oh, there's a lot to unpack this. I like your perspective. To me, that sounds like, no, that's not what I'm.
Well, let me peel back the layers of this thought. This is good communication.
Yeah. And it
Announce-
is great. And I did feel like, oh, okay, cool. It was effective.
If
So-
I were to strip away everything, my thought in its purest, rawest form, and this is why you asking a question about it allows me to get deeper into what I feel. Because in the moment I said whatever comes to mind. A lot of people like to shop around for the right words and try the different shoe sizes on and get the laces right before they speak. No, it's like the best thing that you can do is reduce what we call the latency, the response lag of communication. So one of Gen Z's biggest struggles right now is they will sit for 30 minutes on an idea, on a text, on an email before they reply. As they think that they need a chat GPT, the perfect lightning bolt response, because something bad's going to happen if they just type.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is you're just reinforcing that pattern, and it becomes longer and longer. We used to operate in a society where you had to show up with whatever you could bring in the moment, because face-to-face was the dominant form of communication.
Yeah. Can you imagine you ask someone a question and they just walk off and then 30 minutes they come later and they respond?
Or they turn around and what they do now is they'll chat GPT something.
Yeah.
And that's and it has its advantages. We talk about this relationship between AI, Neuralink, and speaking, and I have a thought on that in a moment. But what I was really feeling, just to backtrack for a brief moment, was you said you opened up a lot of different side quests in my mind that I wanted to go down, and I was in this process of figuring out which one do I want to pursue. And so I said something to buy myself some time in order to figure out what would be most valuable to your audience. So that's why you asking for clarification on what I felt is such a valuable question, because it allows me to further explain how I felt. Humans are most comfortable when they feel like someone understands who they are and how they feel.
Mm. Yeah. So going back to the idea of the vocabulary, that's one of the 80-20 things, right?
Commonplace book.
A commonplace book, it's not vocabulary. It's a commonplace book. What are some other words you have in there? One of the words I noticed for me is I like the word unga bunga. I said it earlier on.
What is the origin of that? What is the etymology of unga bunga?
I used it in a YouTube video in the past where, I don't know, there was just something that was just, it was just dumb. And it was,
what does it remind you of?
it's like a primal stupidity. You know? Unga bunga. It's pretty unga bunga.
And how does it feel when you say that word?
It feels playful while communicating that idea as well. So it's like, yeah, it's stupid, but in a funny way, and primal.
And I think what you've identified there are some very interesting dimensions of your personality. Playfully intelligent is how I think about how I've seen your content. You say incredible ideas that have depth and meaning to people while also keeping it lighthearted, casual, and fun.
Yeah, you said you watched my videos before I had even more than 50,000 views on any of them. So you've been there in the early days.
Your channel had 1,000 subscribers, maybe a few more.
Wow, that's awesome. Great. I love that.
And to see your rise in what you've done and the evolution is incredible.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, you weren't even doing this. You didn't even have a channel about this yet at that point, right?
No channel.
Yeah.
No channel. I did 1,000 consultation calls between 2019 and 2021. These were related to short form consulting because that's what I ran at the time, was a short form agency. And when I got on these calls, I heard a few common compliments. And I say this with as much humility as I can, but this is just me laying the groundwork for where I am now. People would say, "Oh, I love the way that you listened," or "I love the way that you talked about this idea. Your word choice was interesting." And it probably took 500 calls for me to notice that pattern. And then I realized, well, let me actually just talk about what I do here. And that led to a separate YouTube channel where I would just react to speeches because I love linguistics.
That's the best way to start a business, is you notice, like, people give you the feedback where they notice you have a different head start than other people and a sense of passion, right? And so that's awesome. Seems like you really found your thing there, if that's something that naturally showed up and there was a innate passion for it.
I always like the idea of being able to describe a feeling that people couldn't articulate. And I think that's actually a very, very scary belief to hold, because in order to be able to describe something like no one else can, you have to live an experience like no one else can. And I'm not saying I've done that. I think there's a substitute that people often look for in language to what life has to offer. This is why, man, this is why I think the most intelligent and the most articulate people are those who either don't speak at all or don't speak with other people. They're the wizards, the hermits, the monks in the distance who have spent so much time alone with themselves, thinking about life, that they've been able to reach like a depth beyond language.
What I'm hearing is podcasters are dumb. We yap for a living, and the people who yap the
Podcasters
least,
have a PhD in yapping. Welcome to Sunday School, kids. Today you're going to learn about why speaking is making you less intelligent.
That's a great YouTube title. How speaking.
I can
makes you
retention speak. See?
Would you say that speaking too much when there's not really anything to be pursued is one of the 80-20 of reaching that golden tongue?
Yes. So what I did right there was a dramatic pause. That wasn't strategic. I wasn't thinking at all.
Yeah.
By the way, this is what we teach a lot of podcasters. And I know I'm not going to mention who, but there are some really big name podcast guests who go on the major platforms who do that pausing dramatically. It's not strategic. There's strategic pausing where I actually use time to think.
What do you mean by strategic? Oh, strategic is when you use...
It serves myself.
Yeah.
I do not know what I think on this, and I'm not going to pretend I do by committing to words before my brain is actually plotted a direction. That's strategic pausing. And then there's dramatic pausing, which would be, Leon, we invented a word today. We invented a word. Dropper.
Yes.
Pause for effect.
Yeah. This is something I noticed too. As somebody who's the youngest sibling, it's a common pattern for people who grew up as the youngest sibling to speak quickly. Because you're the little one, and it's a pattern that I've seen repeatedly, and I think I've heard it somewhere, read it somewhere. Maybe it's just anecdotal. But there are some people who speak very fast and they mumble their words. And I think it almost signals to other people subconsciously, this one's not that interesting to listen to. They speak fast because they're worried that they're not going to be heard. They don't have much time. They need to get in between somebody else speaking. And it almost signals, this is a theory of mine, it almost signals to other people, don't listen to this one. Because that one is not very sure of themselves. That person is not really sure of themselves. And I've noticed that when I'm in a conversation with a bunch of people, and sometimes you have some loudmouths who have a really resonant voice and they just talk over you. I've noticed that when I pause and I speak with this dramatic effect, people listen. Like it's almost like this gravitational pull where if I just sit in a corner and there's 4 people around me and they're all speaking, and I go, I've been thinking about this for a while, and I look off into the distance, people notice, and they zzz, and when I try to get my word in and I speak fast, it's the opposite effect. So that could be a little hack that I would love for people to try this. Try the next conversation. Let us know if it worked. Because for me, I've seen it work time and time again. And it kind of, it connects to that idea of dramatic effect. Use less words. Say less words, communicate more.
Yeah.
Is there another big 80-20 thing that people can implement immediately? Like something that just like that is one of the few things that makes the biggest difference?
Clarity. What everyone wants when they speak is clarity. And I think it's the most valuable currency in society. Imagine being able to always speak in essences. Lean, tight ideas. And so when we talk about achieving clarity, there are 2 equations for achieving clarity. So clarity is the result of bad output times frequency. What does that mean? Well, let me give you an analogy. If you were to repair the plumbing in your sink and you turn the water on and it's nasty, it smells like salmon, the water's flowing muddy brown, and you get disgusted by that and you turn the tap off, what are you not going to ever get?
Clean water.
You're never going to get clean water. It's not going to be fresh. It's not going to be pure. It's not going to be that geyser blue deliciousness that's going to refresh you. You've got to get through that muddy water, let it flow through the pipes.
Deliciousness that will refresh you. I'm getting thirsty over
.com.
here. I'm getting thirsty. What was that? Wow, that was creative.
Well,
language.
What that was, man, was just a plug for Dasani.
This episode is sponsored by. Is that in your commonplace book?
Dasani?
No, the geyser.
No, man.
It doesn't have much of a use case, but somebody's going to put it in their commonplace book.
It's not in my commonplace book, but this actually, there are so many principles to building an effective commonplace book. One of them is what we call image cues. So you take an idea that you have usually a more abstract idea that you have a hard time communicating, like growth. Okay. We talk about growth. You might say growth. What does growth mean? No one really knows. They just mean like generally on the upswing.
Up, better. Yeah.
Up, right. Like they'll use abstract words. So if you want to visualize this, what we'll encourage people to do is we will audit their conversations. And we have ways of doing this. We have devices that we give them that record their speech. And then we will say, let's identify the 20 abstract ideas that you are not clear at communicating. So growth. So how do we visualize growth? Well, we might say growth like a seed breaking through the soil. Growth like, and there are different ways that you can map an abstract idea to something concrete. Loud as a hammer strike. as sharp as a razor, as precise as a razor. So it's pairing abstraction with something concrete and visual. So for me, I think at some point in my commonplace book, water may have been mapped to fresh geyser blue deliciousness, something like that. In the moment, it was me just cooking different words, combining different ingredients, and then the recipe got an effect. You found it, you may have found it delicious, you may have found it disgusting. It can absolutely put off people. And that's why...
Magnetically disgusting, yeah.
Magnetically disgusting. Attractively polarizing.
It's funny because a buddy of mine and me, we always play with words like that. Like he, for example, he turns nouns into adjectives for no reason. Like instead of popcorn, he says popped corn or chickened wings.
I like that level of creativity.
And then also we had a phase where we would use metaphors, I guess.
It's like...
or descriptions. Go ahead.
I was going to say, right now we've been podcasted.
Yeah. You've been podcasted on my...
I've been podcasted.
Yes.
I've been podcasted.
Somebody asked you, what did you do earlier? I was podcasted by one of my buddies here.
I love that, bro. That scratches that little linguistic engine of my mind in the same way that Dropper did. Podcasted.
Yeah.
Why can't we speak about podcasting in the present tense?
Yeah.
I've been Leon'd.
Yeah. When people ask me what I do, I say I cast pods once a week. And people are usually like, you do what?
But isn't it interesting? They're now paying attention to what they say.
Yeah.
They'll think the first response is, did I just mishear something? Am I having a stroke right now?
Yeah.
And then the second layer is, I think I know what he meant. Is he having a stroke right now?
Yes. Yeah. But they become present. That's one thing for sure. So that's one thing that he did. He would say popped corn, chickened wings. And it's just that little... he would say, my friend would also say, ladies and gentlemen. And you would only almost catch it, but not enough for people to say something. But it, put something in their minds.
Yeah.
And we had a phase where we just made up metaphors that made no sense. For example, oh man, I'm as hungry as an airplane. And just use it. And this is actually another hack that I wrote down here. Just making up words. Like,
it's a dangerous game.
If I have a little thing, I have a little schniesel on my shirt, I just flick it off. So I love that word schniesel. I don't know why, but that's in my...
It's very German. It tracks.
It is, and it's like stuff or a thingy. I have a little schniesel here.
Why are we wearing Boonstaggles?
Boonstaggles. Yeah, exactly. Did you know that? Do you know that word?
No.
It's an actual word.
Is it really?
Yeah.
What does it mean?
Bucket. Moist bucket.
Wunderschön.
Moist bucket. Oh, wunderschön. Yeah.
Oh, is that a word?
Wunderschön? Yeah.
Oh, that's not what I meant to say. Is that...
It's wonder beautiful.
Oh.
Yeah. Or even just like Google out some words. Like some people, they just Google out some words. Like, you know what it means just from how it sounds. And you can just burger them in.
I love it.
You know?
You have such a talent for this. I genuinely mean that.
I just practiced with my friend, with my buddy. I think it genuinely comes from him.
Do you find it freeing, the fact that you can make meaning out of anything your mouth says?
Yeah. It's and people kind of get it. And you can create something new with it, right? Because a specific word is just a map for a territory, right? And you want to get the map as accurately as possible towards the territory. And that's what I guess precise communication is. And so when I say, oh, this is dumb, or I can say this is unga bunga, and if I use it enough and I add enough context and associations to it that are right, I can communicate something that's very precise. And it's fun. And I believe it also changes reality and your perception of reality, because I don't know if you've heard this before. You probably have, but there are certain languages where words exist or they don't exist that actually impact the culture of the country. For example, in German, there's no word for spending money. We don't say spend money. We say give out money. And Germany is one of the, if not, I wouldn't be surprised, the most frugal country. Like I would literally go to a restaurant in Brazil, in Rio with a German friend of mine, and he opens the menu and he says the most German thing. He says, "Oh, the prices here, I thought it'd be cheaper." And it's literally a fraction of what it is here in the US. And I'm just like, oh my God. So is it that Germans are more frugal because they don't have the language of spending, but giving out? You're giving it out. You're almost losing it, right? It feels like a bad thing. Same thing with "I love you." We don't say "I love you" to friends. That's a purely romantic thing. There's a lot of weight to it. To a family member, you don't say "I love you." You say "I hold you dearly." That would be the closest translation I could come up with. And that changes how much love I received as a child. It was not enough, Joseph.
I came on this podcast expecting "I love you," Leon, and instead I get this. What is this? Ooga booga.
Unga bunga.
Unga booga.
Uga bunga
No,
is-
what if ooga booga is what I want to say?
That would have a different meaning.
That's like a Joseph. What is it? Oh, is it less goofy?
It is.
Ooga
it is-
booga sounds, it's more harsh, right? It's more like,
I think I would say it's 500 years before, or after.
it's
Unga
like the
Bunga.
proto Unga booga.
No, it comes after. Unga bunga is
The Jurassic.
more Neanderthal. And then as 500 years later, they developed a little bit more intelligence, like an extra IQ point, and then they Ooga booga.
It's a Jurassic word. It's part of the Cretaceous period.
Yeah. It's like stupid, stupider, the most stupid. It's Ooga, Ooga booga, Unga bunga. We're creating so much magic here. This is
I love it. I love it. Part of me thinks that there's a part of someone's language engine that's going to be so activated right now.
Yeah.
And they're going to think about ways that they can take existing words that they thought were their creation. Because everyone has one or two words, one or two expressions that kind of originated in their family. Might be something their grandmother said. Might be something that they heard from a friend, an inside joke. A word that I know, that you know, dropper. We could go out onto the street and say that. And people might be able to have enough of a context window to determine what the meaning is.
Mm-hmm.
Or they wouldn't, and we would know that. And then we can evolve that. We can go dropper, drop est, the most dropped. That was the most dropped thing.
Yeah.
And so what you've done, like what you've defined as the evolution of Unga Bunga, you've created this, you've evolved linguistics, and you've given people that ability to now do that with other words.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what language is, man, is one constant metamorphosis of communication.
And I do believe it is a way to change culture. It genuinely, once a word exists, it has a gravitational pull towards attention and collective consciousness. I sound like such a dickhead right now with the fancy words I'm using, but genuinely, this is the
Why does that bother you?
I hate people. I hate people. No, I hate it when when I get a sense.
You're so unhinged, man.
I hate it when people sound like they love the smell of their own farts and just like, oh, we're allowed to say the smart thing, collective consciousness. But
but if it captures what you say, why is it bad?
I just despise it a little bit. I don't want to come across that way because I do care what people think about me. So that's it. That's it, people. I'll admit it.
And isn't it funny? Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I think you're onto something that is going to resonate with every person, which is most communication challenges are challenges of judgment.
What will people think?
Always.
Do I sound smart enough? Do I sound too posh?
It's thinking about what other people think about us. And there comes a point where there's a conflict in someone's mind between two different forces. Force number one is, if I focus enough on technique, I can create the perfect speech. It's the pursuit of paradise. And then there's the other side, which is, well, do I even need to do that if I'm comfortable with hell? if I'm comfortable with how I speak right now, which may not all be that bad, honestly. If I just learn not to care what anyone thinks about this, do I even need to improve? And these are the two dials that we focus on in everything that we do. The answer is both. You have to decrease your care, and you have to increase the speech mechanics that will impact the reception of your message. There are things that you can do with your voice. There are ways that you can choose words. There are ways that you can relate to others. There are ways that you can listen. There are ways that you can think, mental models that you can demonstrate that will improve the clarity, the texture, and the comfort of your communication.
Would you say that's another 80-20 thing? Do we have them all?
Clarity?
Yeah. So you mentioned clarity, but then also releasing control of other people's opinions, I guess.
I think it's what everyone's after.
Yeah, just comfort. Yeah.
Yeah, comfort. We define what everyone's after with communication is three things. They want clarity of thought. They want texture of speech. Texture is another word for articulate. They just want it to sound different, man. Not original. They just want it to sound different. And then often the most valuable thing that they want is they want comfort. They want to be able to walk into a high stakes environment where like you have to be a performer. Spotlights on, palms sweating, heart pounding, knees shaking, and they want to not
spaghetti.
Palm spaghetti.
Mom spaghetti. I thought you'd like drop in the Eminem lyrics, like knees weak.
Mom spaghetti.
There's vomit on the sweater already. Mom spaghetti.
That's hilarious, bro. This is my favorite moment of the podcast right now, because I realized absolutely what you thought I said, and I can't believe you just let that slide.
What do you mean?
Like, would I not have come off as a complete nutcase if I'm just pulling Eminem lyrics out of thin air? I just inserted.
That's another technique, maybe. Listen to a rap song, flippity floppity boopity bop, whatever is. They've put so much work into these lines, and you just
so much work.
You just drop them.
That's hilarious.
Casually, if you are in a high stakes environment, you want to perform, and you're stepping on stage, your knees are weak, your arms are heavy. You got vomit on your sweater already from mom spaghetti. You're nervous. But on the surface, you look calm and ready to deliver a powerful speech. Like,
that was good.
Feel that?
I'm going to give you the silent applause that you deserve there.
Awesome. Yes.
That was good. No, you have a knack for this. Like, I genuinely mean that. I'm very, very impressed with the way that you can just bend and twist words together in the moment. And you appreciate it. And you actually use them within context. It's not just you're shooting arrows into the sky for no reason. It's like those arrows are hitting a bullseye.
Yeah, I don't just burger them in and Google some words.
But you can, and you can do it on another level where it makes sense. You are a meta seeder of linguistics. Seeder.
Nice.
Planter.
Nice.
You plant them, and you plant them deep.
This is why I have people on the show. I specifically pick people who will...
To compliment you, yes.
Yes, it's about like making me look good. So this is where we end the pod. Thank you very much. No, there's one more thing about the inventing new words, that there is, it creates culture when you invent a new word. Did you know, for example, that, wait, let me look this up before I say this. How do you look up origins of words?
Etymology. So the etymology of a word usually has to do with its origin.
There's usually a graph where you can see when a word has been used for the first time. How do I find that?
Google has...
First use.
What's the word?
The term parenting, as it refers to the act of raising children, first appeared in the early 20th century. Parenting was not invented before 1918. It was not a thing to talk about parenting, how you raise your child. Oh, maybe it was, but once the word parenting exited someone's mouth, it became much more of a thing, I believe. Like, I wouldn't be surprised, like same thing with Riz or whatever other terms, like.
There's this thought that I've had a lot recently, which is all words is a way of capturing a problem that someone had at one point. That's usually what inventions are, if you think about it. Someone experienced a problem, through trial and error, produced a solution, and that solution became valuable. And so we think of parenting. Maybe parenting wasn't something people needed to reference until they realized that there was actually a problem there that they needed to talk about.
This is something you could do. You could parent a child.
Or how's your parenting coming? Because there's been evidence that you have not been a very good parent. And so now it needed to be acknowledged. There was demand for linguistic capture.
And that's how you come up with new words. Like you said, what is part of the zeitgeist?
That is unaddressed, that is unlabeled, that is becoming problematic.
Yeah.
That once you can describe, people see you as the one with the solution.
Yeah.
One of our
Virtue signaling is one of the terms that came up throughout the social media era, where people would say the thing that is currently accepted and will get you the bonus points, right? That's one of these terms.
Yeah, virtue signaling has many definitions. But I think what we're onto here is there's so much, man, with words and the way that people view themselves that is relieving and freeing once it's addressed. And so much of what we found in good communication is us taking the role of, I'm not going to say therapist because we would never officially step into that role, but it's helping people understand what are they really after when they speak. It's not about the words. Like we talked about with silence and pausing, the number one thing that I would suggest someone get good at if they want to improve speech is your comfort with silence. Because if you can sit in silence in someone's presence, you're likely very comfortable with them and you're comfortable with yourself. And so this is why sitting alone in silence can be a good thing. You let the muddy waters of your mind settle. You can see your own reflection. Sometimes you like it, and then you can acknowledge that. Other times you don't, and maybe there's something you need to change. And then beyond that, beyond comfort with silence, is realizing that, as with many things in life, less is more with speech.
And with that, we're finishing the podcast, I guess.
Have I been successfully podcasted?
So what do you think of the interview? What do you think of what Joseph talked about?
I thought it was fantastic because I saw all of it and was there.
Okay, can you make it more
cute.
believable and make it, because we want to make the viewer think that we all recorded in one go. So just
Yeah, such beautiful blue eyes. His eyes were blue, right? Were his eyes blue? What color are his eyes?
you just pick something hyper specific. I love the green shirt he was wearing. If you're new here, you're listening to the Driven Podcast, the show that I started after I left my old channel with 670,000 subscribers behind, because I just spent way too many years being driven by pain and taking life way too seriously. And yeah, we believe fun and joy is not in the way of your highest goals, but really the only way to achieve them. So share this episode with a friend. That's honestly the best way that we grow this show. And if you resonate with this and you think one of your friends is taking life way too seriously and over-optimizing their life, and they're kind of boring, they're not nice to be around, send it to him, and instantly they will be better off. And you will have fixed them, and you can take credit for it. So go share it on your IG with a friend. It's the best way to grow. So, and it'll help us also get better guests, which we desperately need.
And we also dispel major myths around here. The first myth being that you can't fix people and shouldn't try. You can and you should by sharing the show.
Do you love America?
I do.
Okay, then I can safely talk about what I'm about to talk about. It was just 4th of July, very recently, a few days ago. And it's the birthday of the United States, right?
Yes, sir.
Kind of? Yeah. And yeah, I was hanging out with my buddy Marcus. He's the AI guy that was on the show before, who makes trillions of dollars and looks amazing. And he looks like he's 30, but he's 40 years old. And he's extremely intelligent, all the good things. And yeah, there were a lot of people at the party. And I just sat down with the group of people and I was like, oh, isn't it great? Like, I love the US. I love that, you guys have this celebration here. And these two white girls they just started going in on me. Yeah, they were just like, really? You like it here? I'm like, yeah, of course. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. And they were like, but this is it's so terrible here. It's like the whole country, it's only going down, and this, and I'm like, okay, like my blood started boiling, because the amount of work and like headspace and all that I put into getting into this country with like visa stuff and like investing into my business so I could come here, all that stuff, because I wanted to be here. Man, I'm just like, these girls, they were born here. Well, I shouldn't say girls, they were in their 40s, but these women were born here, and I asked them, okay, fair enough, like, where do you think it's better? Like, what country do you think is better? And don't get me wrong, I think there are different countries that are better for certain things that you want in your life, right? So if you don't want to work much and you want to have a simple, easy life, I think there's places in Europe that are better, 100%. But I asked them and they couldn't really tell me much other than, like Italy, for example. Or, okay, Denmark, they have such great healthcare and da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, yeah, the social system is much better there. But 9 months out of the year, you don't see the sun. You forget what the sun looks like. You have seasonal depression. And it's cold and miserable. And, me being from Germany, I have a good sense for that too. We have that 8 or 9 months out of the year. Not as bad as Denmark, but it's cold and miserable and gray. And you can't really do that much. And you don't want to, because you come home and you're freezing and nothing's really fun. And so, yes, you have a better social systems, but okay, weather kind of sucks. And the people are also very different. Well, that's all a taste thing. And then she was like, yeah, but okay, what about Italy? Yeah, Italy is great. The weather is great. It's beautiful. But do you want to live in Italy? Like, do you want to get a house and a job? Because finding a house and getting a visa or getting any paperwork done, everything takes about 5 times longer. It just does. People don't, they're not on top of shit there. Nothing against Italians, amazing people, but the productivity is way down, right? And so they couldn't tell me what a better country is, where they would actually prefer to live. So that's the one point. I was like, okay, where would you rather live? Because if you don't like it here and you have the ability to leave to a country where it's better, why are you here? I mean, that's what I did, right? I was like, hey, I want to build this exciting business and I want to be around the best people who do it. The US is the place, not Australia, where I lived for a few years, and definitely not Europe. And then the other argument was, yeah, but like, it's not what it used to be. Like, the US is way worse than it has ever been. I'm like, okay, in what regard? And are we talking about a 6-month time period because there's a new president, whatever? Or are we talking about a 5 to 10 year time period? Because if you go back any 10-year interval, everything has been worse, right? And one of the women brought up, yeah, well, would you want to be trans today? I'm like, would you want to be trans 50 years ago? No, there wasn't any trans. Yeah, well, why wasn't there? Like, it wasn't even an option to be trans 50 years ago, let alone 40 years ago, or 30 years ago. 20 years ago, it may have gotten a bit better. 10 years ago, a little bit better. And now it's better than it's ever been. Like anything, whether it's like poverty, access to whatever, right? Like 10 years. And because it's so easy to look at like these incremental, like, oh, in the last 6 months or in the last so-and-so, it got worse. But like, if you zoom out, it's like a stock, right? In the stock market. Like, oh, look how terrible this company is doing. It's going downhill. But then when you move out 10 years, it's like, oh, they've consistently gone up and I can't even see the downturn anymore. And yeah, I just, I think the takeaway for me was, don't get into these discussions. It's not worth it.
Yeah, don't do it. That's a mistake. Don't talk to 40-year-old white women at 4th of July barbecues. I love that. They're taking their day off, eating their hot dogs in a backyard that someone owns, and like, America sucks. Like, okay, thanks for your opinion.
I'll give them credit. They were open to it, and they were like, no, I want to hear your perspective, but it was with this emphasis on like, but it's really bad, right? I mean, you may not know because of your race and da 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 da, because like you're privileged, and I'm like, I'm more of a foreigner than you are. And it's funny because the first generation people that moved to the US, they love the US because obviously they choose it. And they're like, hey, America, I love it, And I'm just imitating a random accent here because it could be from anywhere, right? Like people that come here from Germany, that come here from India, that come here from China, the people that choose to be here, they love it. And then what happens, and I see this again and again with friends of mine who, they have an ethnic background, which technically everyone has because everyone has an ethnicity. But they don't love America anymore. But their parents did. And so why? And they're like, no, I'm way more aligned with whatever country they're from. And I'm like, no, you're American. You're way more American, like, than where your parents are originally from. And I don't know what that phenomenon is, but it's so consistent. It's like I guess you have to have the contrast of like having lived in a different country because they didn't live in another country. So
I think that phenomenon is like, and I was saying this earlier in our call, but like when a company is marketing their product or they're publicly traded, they're trying to get investors, whatever it is, they have their messaging, their brand that they put out, but then it's like, well, what's it like to work there, or what's it like when you have to go on customer service? And obviously everyone puts any country, any company, any person puts their best foot forward when they're trying to make their first impression. And then you find out people's flaws kind of as you go. And the US wouldn't be any different. But so people who grew up somewhere else, they see like the cowboy, freedom, whatever economic opportunity, they see whatever it is that they are interested in and they admire. They come. Their kids don't have the contrast. They don't have growing up in a place that clearly their parents wanted to not be. And so they don't have the thing to contrast. And then they're here. And the big thing about American culture is individualism. And so the best way to be an individual is to be a little snowflake and be like, I'm not from here. I'm actually from that country or this country or that place or whatever. And this place sucks. And I'm special for thinking that.
yes, that's actually such a good point. It's one of the most American things to do is I'm actually this thing. I'm actually, look at how special I am, right?
I identify as a citizen of a country I've never visited. Actually, but like that is a thing. So I had a friend who had a health problem, and the American healthcare system has its issues, as is often talked about, right? And so she was unable to get medical coverage for her situation, and that's obviously like I wish it wasn't that way. And she found out that I think it was Spain or Portugal covered it. And I was like, okay, but that doesn't really help you because you're here. So like, what are you going to do about that? Or like Canada covered it. And she's like, well, I'm going to go to Canada. I'm like, thing in the world to think you can just go somewhere you want to go. That's freedom rotting your brain. How are you going to go? What you're only allowed in that country for 3 months at a time. Like you have this disease for life. Like how? She's like, well, I'll just become a citizen. I'm like, how? Are you an engineer? Are you marrying one of them? Do you have $1 million for a golden passport? Other countries don't necessarily want you at all. America wants you to varying degrees, depending who's the president, but more or less, basically the most pro-immigration country on earth by many metrics. So it's like to be like, yeah, I'm gonna go like I'm just gonna do it. It's like, no, you're not. Like you're being a dumb American right now. You're gonna show up there. They're gonna be like, leave.
Yeah, I think the gist of it is, if you don't like the country that you're in, and you have the privilege to leave, and you know there's a better country out there that aligns with your values, go there. But they couldn't name a single country, and they were in America while they're talking. So have some gratitude for whatever you have. But it was like this. It's like their lives were great, but for other people it wasn't, and so therefore everything is terrible, and so I can't like it either. And so I get it. I think the U.S. has many problems, just like any other country. I think there needs to be a way better support to catch the bottom, right? Meaning people that are that are poor, feel disenfranchised, mental illnesses, like all of those things. I would love to have a better system for those people, to support them, to bring them up, to take care of them. But yeah, I think in other countries and European countries, for example, yeah, you lift the bottom, but you also cap the top. You cap them massively. And so people like myself and many other people who I know, a ton of other entrepreneurs who I know, they just leave. They just leave because they're like, man, I'm getting taxed out of the wazoo. The cultural sentiment is that because I have money and because I've achieved something, I must have taken it from someone and I must have gotten lucky and taken advantage of someone. And there's so many barriers to me building a business. Like these steps you need to take to hire someone in Europe, or even just like when you let someone go in Europe. I can't speak for all of Europe, but for Germany, I've heard this story. Don't quote me on this, but you have to give specific reasons why, and there need to be multiple incidents that you need to document. Because if you don't have that, they can take you to court and they'll win. Like it's massively in favor for the worker, which is great if you're a worker, And so I think everyone needs to find wherever they can go. And again, it's a privilege, of course. Like I'm super lucky the fact that I was born in Germany and I have literally the best passport. It's the number one passport because it has the most access to any other country. And the biggest reason why is because we're the most reliable people in the world. Period. I'm going to go out and say it. Germans are the most reliable people in the world, probably closely competed with by Japan, because when you tell us, hey, you can be here for 3 months in this country, then you have to leave, we're going to stay for 2 months. Just to have a month-long buffer, just to make sure we're not breaking any rules, And when we're here, and I even catch myself, when I see trash on the ground, I pick it up and I put it in the trash. And I'm like, oh, wait, no, I don't need to do that here. I'm not in Germany. Like, we're good guests, right? And so, yeah, here's my gripes with the US. Measurement systems. I don't know how many inches fit in one ounce. I don't know how many yards it takes to get a whole pound. All of those, like, 1 foot is how many inches? 12?
12.
That's a big issue. Like, don't tell this to anyone, but, I may have said before, somebody may have asked me about my height before. And, maybe I wanted to take them on a date. And so maybe I said I'm 5'12", and that kind of gave me away. I wish 1,000 meters could just be a kilometer because it's 1,000. It's easy to remember. And then power plugs. Dude, power plugs here in the US, they suck. I put in my charger for my MacBook and it just falls out. It's just noodly. It's just like, whereas in Europe, it locks in. It's impossible to charge my laptop on an airplane. Like, how do you keep it in?
It's bad.
So, I don't know. But these are the only two things.
There are no other problems, actually.
No, nothing else. Everything else is great for everybody. And I'm blind to any problems.
I like to say, like, having lived in both places, like Canada is, I think, a really beautiful place, at least most of it, if you want to just chill and have a family. And just have, like, if you can manage to be, like, a little bit above working class or middle class and you just want to chill and have your kids and do your thing, probably best place in the world for that. If you want to start a business or
Australia,
try to be top 1% in anything, you got to go to the US. And even in certain parts of the US, like you're probably not going to do it in
Nebraska,
40 of the states. Yeah, you're not going to be the number one I don't know. You're not going to be the number one actor if you're not in LA, probably, Yeah.
I love the US and I love other countries too. And this is the country where I feel like my values align the most.
How so?
Well, if you want to do stuff, you can do it. And when somebody's successful, people don't go, but people go, oh, I can. How did you do that? Because I want to do that too. And like, yeah, that doesn't happen in other countries. The common experience, and every country has their own term for it. I know in Germany, I know in Australia, they have the tall poppy syndrome. In England and Ireland, I'm sure they have the same, but it's basically like you get bullied by your friends if you try to make something of yourself. And then once you've gotten to a certain place, they're like, oh, you think you think you're successful now. Oh, you think you're better than us now. And yeah, I don't have data to back that up. It's purely based on feelings.
Well, that's
But
how we know it's right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anyways, I had an intervention with the Crooked Man. So Crooked Man, again, he's the guy who only trains one side of his body. And we had Dr. Mike Israetel on to, it was a funny segment. It was like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if here's how you get an exercise scientist to go even further down the disaster road.
I thought we got him sponsored. I thought we were dead. I was dead serious about that. I want to see how bad of a scoliosis he can get, and if RP is going to sponsor.
Like I said to Mike, this could have either been an intervention or we make history. I wanted to have some sort of thing in there where we're like, hey, but like seriously, like go fix your stuff. Like this is not good. And I was kind of like, oh man, I kind of feel like he's 19. I feel like I should say something. And I reached out to him again. I was like, hey, send me your number. Let's talk. I want to support you. And yeah, I kind of tried to talk around it instead of just being like, okay, immediately advice mode, like, hey, don't do this because like, why would he listen? And I just wanted to hear about his goals and stuff and just like, hey, where do you see this going? And so, yeah, I mean, he knows that he's just being a meme right now. And we talked about for half an hour. And I was like, yeah, what are your goals? Like, okay, you want to make money, you want to get views. And I told him, like, I think the being crooked is going to get old very quickly and you're going to end up having massive health problems. And I think it'd be really great, actually, if you went the other way around. You had a, what do you call that arc? When someone has a realization and they, you know what, I'm now in my recovery arc, whatever you want to call it. I think you would attract way better people that actually have buying power, so you could actually monetize, and you would end up with better health. And so I don't know how much that resonated with him. He was like, oh, I'll think about it. But
well,
yeah.
Why is he? I mean, I didn't want to ask him in case there was a medical. I mean, clearly he doesn't care if millions of people are watching.
Oh
it
yeah,
happen, but like, why is he like that? Is that all training?
I asked him, do you have a condition or something? And he's like, no, it's just from training. I'm like, what? Damn.
It's
really?
Crazy how jacked you can get when you train consistently, but only have to do 50% of the training.
Yeah.
That's kind of inspiring in a way, actually. I'm like, oh wow, that's like he's a walking before and after pick.
Yeah.
But like, if he turned it around and he like, okay, I trained only the right side for like a year, then he had like 1 year of like, I'm only going to train the left to balance it out, and then after that, just doing, but I'm going to be normal now. I'm going to do both sides, and he like balanced it all out. That's kind of like Chris Rock talks about this when he goes and does stand-up. Like, people will be excited to see him because he's a celebrity and maybe he's their favorite comedian, and so they'll laugh at things that aren't really that funny because they're just happy to be there. So he'll deliberately spend the first like sometimes up to 2 to 5 minutes of his set bombing on purpose, so that people
making
are
people
like,
cry.
Yeah, attacking them, calling them names and slurs, but just like not doing well and being a disappointment actively, so that he can dig himself in a hole and then pull himself out of the hole. And that's even more impressive because he's like, I actively disappointed you and then won you back with skill from an even worse place than I started. And Crooked Man could do that. Crooked Man could be like, I gave myself chronic scoliosis and several injuries and a hormonal dysfunction, and now I'm symmetrical. And people are going to listen to him.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I told him. I'm like, dude, you have real, like, the fact that you came from this now and that's how your story is starting is a massive opportunity. So we'll see if it takes it.
Well, what would you rather have? Would you rather have a healthy spine or 1 million followers on Instagram?
I would rather have a healthy spine, 1 million followers on Instagram, and $1 million in the bank. Right now, he's only going to go for 1 million followers on Instagram, who are not going to buy anything that he suggests, because why would anyone? Hey, buy this supplement. No. Whereas if he has a recovery arc and hey, I'm going to figure this thing out, that's going to be incredible. And then people will listen and people will buy and people will be emotionally attached to him and can see themselves in him. So, yeah. One more thing. I think the best thing for this podcast to grow is to make a show that people like. Isn't that a mind-blowing realization that I had? I think the show itself has to be good, so people listen to it and they go, hey, I think I want to do this again. This wasn't a mistake. And so, yeah, I just came up with that idea. One of the best things I've done for my channel in the past is talking to the audience and just asking them, hey, did you like this? What do you think of this video? So, long story short, I'm building a focus group. I think that's what it's called, a focus group. I want to get maybe 3 or 5 people who are listening to this show consistently into a group. And it's almost like, who knows, maybe it'll be like a reverse Patreon where I'm paying you $5 a month so that you hop on a call with me to tell me what you think of the show, what you think of these segments. Did you implement any of the things? Were they valuable? Do you think the topics we picked were good? Is there anything else you want to know more about? Do you think the way the episode was structured was interesting? Did you get bored? What do you think of the guests? All that stuff. And I would just want to get a handful of people together. I'm going to put a link in the description below, a Google form where you can just fill out a few questions, and then I'm going to handpick a few people to talk to on a regular basis so that we can create the show together. And these are specifically people that we'll be picking based on, do we think that these people are our ideal target audience? So we'll put a link down below. And then from there, we'll get really focused and we'll be a group. And that's our focus group. And then we'll make the show better.
That'll be awesome. And I think, hey, if it works, we could scale it. We could pay thousands of people to join a reverse Patreon. And then in our podcast mastermind BFF group, we'll have the biggest reverse Patreon out of anybody.
Then we're really the least successful, most poor. I love that. Hey, this is working. Let's scale this. Is always the answer. Thanks for listening. See you in the next one.